Margaret Ellis was asleep when the phone rang at 11:40 p.m. The voice on the other end was crying. "Grandma, I'm so sorry. I was in an accident. Please don't tell Mom and Dad yet." It sounded exactly like her grandson, the same nervous laugh. The same way he always said, "Grandma," instead of Nana. Within 4 hours, she had wired $18,000 to a stranger she believed was helping post his bail. Her real grandson was asleep in his dorm room the entire time. This isn't a hypothetical. It's the exact structure used by a scam network that U.S. federal investigators say stole more than $30 million from elderly Americans across 46 states, and the man accused of running it was arrested by Canadian police in a small town outside Montreal less than a year ago. Here's exactly how it worked and why it's still happening right now to someone's grandmother. Tonight, federal investigators allege the operation was run out of call centers in the Montreal area, employing dozens of people across multiple locations, all trained to run the same script with remarkable precision. The call always follows a near-identical structure. A voice, often digitally altered or simply a young caller trained to sound panicked and vague, claims to be a grandchild in trouble, a car accident, an arrest, sometimes a bar fight that wasn't even my fault. The details are deliberately fuzzy enough that a frightened, half-asleep grandparent fills in the specifics themselves, unconsciously convincing themselves it really is their own grandchild's voice on the line. Then comes the second voice, a police officer, lawyer, or bail bondsman, calling back within minutes to make the situation feel procedurally real. The second caller explains that bail needs to be posted immediately, in cash, and that the family absolutely cannot be told yet because it would be embarrassing or could affect the case. According to the U.S. indictment, between the summer of 2021 and June of 2024, this exact script was used against elderly victims across the country, with investigators eventually raiding call centers in Montreal and finding defendants according to federal filings, in the literal act of placing these calls to a victim in Virginia. The money extraction step is where the operation becomes genuinely sophisticated. Victims weren't asked to wire money to a bank account, which would trigger fraud alerts. Instead, they were instructed to gather cash and hand it directly to a courier, or sometimes a rideshare driver, sent to their home to collect the bail money in person. This step alone made the scam far harder for banks to flag, since no suspicious wire transfer or unusual account activity ever occurred. Just an ordinary cash withdrawal from someone's own account, followed by handing an envelope to a stranger at their front door. Investigators eventually identified the alleged architect of this specific network, a Canadian man named Gareth West, who publicly presented himself as a successful Montreal real estate developer, luxury cars, high-end properties, an active social media presence, describing himself as a health enthusiast, documenting his personal growth journey. Behind that public image, according to the U.S. indictment, West was allegedly directing a criminal enterprise that specifically targeted retirees, exploiting the exact emotional instinct that makes grandparents grandparents, the willingness to do anything immediately, without question, if a grandchild is in danger. In March of 2025, RCMP officers, working alongside U.S. Homeland Security investigations and the IRS, arrested 23 people connected to the network. West evaded capture for several more months, at one point, according to a source familiar with the investigation, narrowly missing arrest at a house in Ontario that was under renovation at the time police arrived. On July 4, 2025, an RCMP emergency response team arrested Gareth West outside a home in Saint-Colomban, Quebec, a small municipality about 70 kilometers northeast of Montreal. He offered no resistance. He now faces extradition to the United States on charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering, charges that carry up to 40 years in federal prison if he's convicted. One alleged co-conspirator remains at large as of this recording. Here's the detail that should genuinely concern anyone with aging parents or grandparents. This scam doesn't require a victim to be confused, technologically illiterate, or in any way diminished. It requires only one thing: a phone ringing late at night, and a voice that sounds frightened enough to override the normal 30 seconds of doubt a person would otherwise have time to feel. Fraud researchers note that grandparent scams specifically exploit a form of emotional urgency that bypasses rational verification almost entirely. The caller isn't trying to convince you logically. They're trying to trigger a parental protective instinct fast enough that logic never gets the chance to catch up. If there's a defense against this, and there genuinely is one, simple enough that federal investigators recommend it explicitly, it's this: agree on a family code word in advance, a single word or phrase that only real family members would know, to be used anytime someone calls claiming to be in an emergency and asking for money. If the caller can't provide it, hang up immediately and call your actual family member directly, using a number you already have saved, never a number the caller provides. And if you ever receive a call like this, regardless of how convincing the voice sounds, hang up and call the actual person back yourself. Every documented case in this network followed the identical pattern: pressure to act within minutes and pressure to keep the family in the dark. Both of those pressures together are the actual scam. The story about the accident is just the delivery mechanism. Margaret Ellis got her $18,000 back, eventually, and only partially, after months of dispute with her bank and a police report that took nearly a year to result in any real action. Most victims of this specific network, according to federal prosecutors, never recover anything at all. Investigators have said the money moves too fast, through too many hands, for most of it to ever be traced back. Gareth West is currently in custody awaiting extradition proceedings. The full scope of how much of the $30 million can ever be recovered for its victims may never be fully known. What is known, and what matters most if you take one thing from this story, the very last thing a real emergency needs from you is secrecy. Genuine emergencies want more people involved, not fewer. The instant someone on the phone asks you not to tell anyone else in your family, that request, not the accident, not the arrest, not the tears, is the actual red flag.